Hey folks, Matt from artoftheimage.com. Just finishing my cup of fresh brewed Java with Lord Vader. I made this mug for my daughter for Christmas last year, and it's one of her favorite mugs, although I made her a Wonder Woman one this year. I think she likes it better, but I like this one. Anyways, the Nikon 50mm f1.2 AIS. This is a sad day here at Art of the Image because my time is up for reviewing it. It has to go back to B&H. Thank you very much to B&H for loaning it to me. I'll put a link below. You can check out the best price and user reviews and all the Q&As on B&H. But amazing lens. I love this lens. Probably is my fastest, not my fastest, my favorite. It's also the fastest that I've ever owned. I don't own it, unfortunately. 50mm. So, I mean, that probably sums up my final review here for you quite succinctly. Definitely one of the best built, if not the best built lenses I've ever had the pleasure of shooting with. Fit and finish on this thing is amazing. At the risk of sounding cliche, it's Leica-ish. You can't get, I don't think, any better build quality than this. The zoom ring on here is smooth as butter and very, very, very nice. The tactile feel of it is very enjoyable. The aperture ring is clickable. I think you could probably hear that. And has a nice tactile feel as well with, a finite feel for every click, so you know where you're at. And it stops there. It has a little bit of resistance at each stop, so it's very nice build quality, very nice construction, fit and finish. The heft of it, it's much heavier than any of the newer f1.8, f1.4, f1. Well, there is no new f1.2, which is one of my pet peeves with Nikon. Why haven't they turned this guy into an AFS lens? I have no idea. But yeah, probably my favorite 50 I've ever shot with. Do I miss the autofocus? Sure. Is it a problem? No, not really. Focus confirmation on all the Nikon bodies works very nicely with this. Shooting with an adapter on my Panasonic Micro Four Thirds bodies works very nicely. I didn't get a chance to try it on a Sony body, but I'm sure it would be the same thing. You can use focus peaking on any of the mirrorless, whether it's Panasonic, whether it's Olympus, whether it's Sony. Focus peaking will work to help you focus this guy. Look at the size of the front element on that. It's just a 50, and it's huge for a 50. Bearing in mind that this is a manual focus lens. You can't fault it for being a manual focus lens, so I don't give it a knock for that on my review, obviously. But it is a manual focus lens. So as long as you're going into it acknowledging it's manual focus, and you're not going to say, well, I don't like the fact it's not autofocus, I think this is the best 50 perhaps ever made. It is the sharpest, I would argue, 50 ever made at f2. By f2, nothing's going to beat this sucker. At f1.2, contrary to what a lot of people say, I think it's perfectly usable. I mean, just how sharp do you need a lens to be for portraits anyways? A lot of times, that's a detriment. You're doing things to de-sharpen it, because that's not always the most flattering on a portrait. You want a certain level of sharpness, but you don't always want, 6,000 pixels of tack sharpness. You might want to keep the eyes sharp, but I find this to be very sharp, good enough, plenty good enough sharp at f1.2, and it has this beautiful characteristic at f1.2 of this creamy, dreamlike bouquet, very unique to this lens, that makes this a very, very unique shooting experience, unlike anything else you've probably ever shot with. And then stop it down to f2, and it's the sharpest, probably best performing 50 ever made. I really wish Nikon would update this lens to an AFS G, or I guess E, or whatever they're calling is it E or P? The latest generation of lenses. Make it an AFS lens with the most up-to-date optics and coatings and whatnot. I would buy this in a heartbeat. That's probably the only reason I didn't end up buying this, because I got a really good deal on f1.4 AFD, and it was 200 Canadian. This is one of these used in good shape is gonna cost me at least 600, if not more. So it was a really tough call, but That said, this is far nicer build quality, and it does have a very unique bokeh and out of focus area for doing environmental portrait shots with it. And as you know, a 50 becomes close to an 85 on an APS-C sensor, and I love 50s for portraits on APS-C DX bodies like a D7200, D5500, D3400, and I've shot it on all these except the 72, and I may grab a few shots with this on the 72 before I have to package it up and send it back today. But I heartily recommend this lens. No pet peeves, no negatives. The only pet peeve is nothing to do with the performance of the lens, but just a little tick off from Nikon. You sell one of your top end lenses, your top 50 ever, an expensive lens, $699 new. I'll put the link below to B&H, and you don't give us a proper rear cap. You give us this El Cheapo pop-on cap for the back, like so, and you don't give us a proper cap on the back. I don't understand that. I really don't understand that. I'm used to seeing those on the cheap 50 f1.8s. I shouldn't say cheap, the inexpensive, because they're very good lenses. But even the 50 f1.8G doesn't come with one of these. I think the older f1.8D used to, if memory serves. But why are you putting this instead of a real Nikon cap on the back of one of your top-end professional quality lenses? I don't understand that, and I never will. Anyways, highly recommended. Love this lens. Bear in mind it's manual focus. As long as you're okay with manual focus, which is actually an advantage for video in a lot of situations, I highly recommend that lens. And I highly recommend you, if you're interested in it, to try it out, because I think you'll fall in love with it. Actually, I recommend you don't if your pocketbook is hurting, because you will fall in love with it and you're going to want to buy it. And it's a $699 new lens, or you could find one used, but it's not cheap. On the other hand, the shots you get from it are going to be timeless. And I'm eventually going to buy one of these. Whether it's used or new, I'm not sure. If I find a really good deal on a used copy, on a really good shape, I'll get a used one. Eventually I'll buy one, and I will never sell it. It's the lens I will hang on to. Probably be my favorite lens of all time once I own it, and I'll hang on to it forever. So how's that for a final review? I just can't say I love this lens. I can't say enough good about it. I'm not sure there are any negatives to say about this lens. I just wish Nikon would update it to an autofocus lens. If you're in the Canon camp, probably it's better built than the Canon f1.2L. There's not much built better than this. However, the f1.2L is probably what I would buy if I was shooting Canon, just simply because it's autofocus. And it is an L lens. It's very, very good. Build quality is not going to beat this, though. Anyways, folks, if you have any questions about it, leave it in the comments below. If you have any sample shots, if you own this lens, leave them in the comments below. Let's have a look. Anything you want to know, anything you want to discuss about it, comments below. Again, I'll put the link down below to B&H. You can check it out yourself. Thanks again to B&H. Stay tuned. We'll be back soon here at artoftheimage.com.